Well, welcome everyone. I'm going to go over ideal family boundaries today, which is one of the challenges in anxiety treatment are family boundaries because anxiety disorders are help rejecting and anxiety disorders are very pushy and clever. And so the anxiety disorder tends to push against parental boundaries and uh, really get the parents kind of wondering how they lost all their power in the home and how things got so out of control. And so sometimes we have to go over ideal family boundaries to remember what we're all shooting for as parents in terms of boundaries and who should have what information, et cetera, in the family. So let's go over that. I have a diagram that I like to use for that, and it helps with our discussion. And so this Venn diagram is useful because it tends to outline for us who should be interacting with who and about what, and what who should be speaking into each other's lives, how the different subsystems of the family interact in healthy ways and how they might interact in unhealthy ways. So if we look at the dark blue subsystem of the family, that's the parent's subsystem. And the majority of that is all by itself. The parents are interacting primarily with one another about their work, their finances, their parenting. And then there's the sibling subsystem, which is the light blue. And the siblings are interacting by themselves quite a lot about their day, their playing together, what they want to do, what they're thinking and feeling. And there's also a large crossover, though, with the dark blue parental subsystem, where the siblings are telling the parents a lot about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what their plans are. And of course, that overlap is less and less as the siblings get older and they consult the parents less about what they're going to do, where they're going to go, because they have more freedom. And then the other subsystems in the family would include the grandparents on each side if they're living and if they're involved in the family. And there's crossover between the parents and the grandparents. There's a whole sphere there in the upper right and upper left. That's where the navy blue overlaps the pink, where the grandparents and parents share information that shouldn't go to the siblings. It's stuff that adults talk about. It might be stuff that the parents consult with the grandparents about, but the grandparents wouldn't tell the siblings, the grandkids, what was talked about amongst the adults, because that would be a violation of the parental subsystem's confidence. Unless, of course, there's some type of abuse or neglect going on where the grandparents have to report something to the authorities in some extreme situation. But and then there's a sphere where the grandparents interact with the grandkids on each side, that they have a special relationship that's separate from the parents' relationship with the children. And that can be a beautiful, wonderful thing. And this is if the grandparents are safe people to be around, of course. And then there's a sphere that is shared between everyone, where the grandparents and parents and the grandkids all hang out and do things together, exchange information. But the adult topics stay the adult topics in the parental subsystem. The parents shouldn't be talking to their children about finances, their stresses at work, their stresses with the other children, because that's not appropriate information for children to have. They need to be worried about doing their chores and doing their homework and navigating their peer relationships and their sibling relationships, not helping the parents navigate their financial stressors or job stressors or marital stressors. So the siblings would not know anything about that because the parents would be consulting their subsystem of peers and mentors, their same age peers, their own siblings, and any mentors they have, like a rabbi or a priest or a pastor or a therapist. And they might also consult the grandparents. But that's all information for adults to know. That wouldn't be anything that would go to the kids, the siblings. And then there's also the subsystem of the parent, step parent, where if the parents are not together and there's a step parent on one or both sides, that step parent's job is to support whatever the biological parents are doing. Again, as long as no child is being physically or sexually abused or neglected in some way that is reportable to Child Protective Services, then the step parent's job is to not be a main disciplinarian unless they came into the child's life at a very young age and will do some of the disciplinarian stuff. But otherwise, they are to support whatever boundaries and interventions and caregiving style that the parents have, and be another loving mentor in the child's life. And they have a relationship with the children that's all their own. They also have the shared crossover where they're all exchanging information, the parents and the children. And then they have a relationship with one of the parents that is where only adult information is shared, and the step parent keeps the boundaries on that on the adult subsystem, where they don't share with the children anything about their marriage to the other parent in terms of the problems there or their stressors at work or with their finances or whatever. And then the siblings, lastly, have peers and mentors of their own. Maybe they have, wonderful coaches and teachers and youth leaders in their life that are very important to them, that they have relationships with, that maybe the parents also know. The parents should know those people. And so there's some crossover with the parent subsystem, but they don't spend as much time with them as the siblings do. So the children have more shared time with those peers and mentors. And those people might speak into the life of the child in ways that the parent can't or doesn't and really appreciates. I know I have appreciated many a mentor that my children had in their lives that really impacted them in positive ways. I can think of especially some young life leaders that were really pivotal in my daughter's life growing up, and a couple of teachers that were really pivotal in my son's life growing up. And so those relationships can be very special. So these are the main boundaries that we're all aspiring toward, but some problems can come in when the boundaries get violated. For example, when there's a family crisis, sometimes one of the siblings who is not in the crisis, one or more of the siblings, will feel neglected or like they have less time and attention from the parents because the parents are so busy dealing with the person who's in the mental health crisis, the child that's in the mental health crisis. And so that sibling might have various reactions to feeling like they have less time and attention from the parents. Could be that they just get quieter and focus more on being extra good, or standing out in good ways because they want to make up for the other sibling that's standing out in ways that are distressing to the rest of the family. or they might become louder and engage in behaviors that are more, they might have bigger behaviors that are negative, even to restore some of the time and attention to themselves. Or they might ask the parents questions. They might try to help by asking. All of these are efforts to help and support the parents, which isn't the child's job. And we have to address that in the family therapy while the person, the identified patient, is in treatment. But another way they might try to help is by asking the parent, checking on the parent, asking the parent questions about how they're doing, how's work, how's so-and-so doing, the identified patient, or are you worried about so-and-so? And really try to become a friend or confidant to the parent, which again is an inappropriate role for the child. And we don't need to be disclosing. They might also intervene in interactions where the parents are trying to handle the behaviors of the identified patient, and they might repeat some of the things that the parent, they might parentify themselves or be parentified by the parent. You know, can you watch so-and-so? Can you make sure so-and-so this? Can you tell me if so-and-so is doing that? And so they may end up being a third parent. They may rise out of the sibling subsystem or be pulled out of the sibling subsystem into the parent subsystem, which really damages the sibling relationship, because the child who is parentified is usually the butt of a lot of anger from the identified patient, because the identified patient resents the sibling being parentified, and they also experience a lot of grief and loss from that on both sides, because they don't have a sibling relationship anymore. They have an altered relationship. So those kind of things are very important for parents to be aware of and to correct during the treatment process in the family therapy, so that the sibling that is trying to be helpful can still have a role that is a sibling role in being helpful and not a parentified role, so that we can change that back to a sibling role and restore the normal sibling interactions with the help of the therapist. So that's kind of some of the ways that the boundaries can be impacted by a family crisis. And we really want to address these boundaries, especially where a lot of accommodation has come into the family, where parents or siblings may be involved in facilitating safety behaviors, which always make anxiety worse, even though they make the person feel better in the moment. So we want to make sure that all the siblings and parents stop all the ways in which they're facilitating any avoidance or providing reassurance or supporting any rituals or engaging in any rituals, like answering the same question over and over, or not touching something that the person doesn't want them to touch, not going somewhere in the house they don't want them to go, allowing them to stay home from things, all kinds of repeating or checking or counting may be happening, cleaning, washing. Oh, you can't touch me, hug me until you've washed your hands, whatever. All of those accommodation behaviors have to be slowly stopped in a stepwise progression, so that until they're all gone, so that we can restore the normal functioning in the family, and we aren't feeding the monster, right? Because anytime family members are assisting the person in any avoidance, allowing them to go home from places, stay home from places, cancel things, providing reassurance by answering the same question over and over, as I said earlier, or allowing confessions or repeated apologies, or telling the identified patient that nothing bad will happen. All of these things are following the cult leader, the anxiety disorder, and that all has to be stopped. In addition to buying extra cleaning supplies, toilet paper, unclogging toilets repeatedly, whatever it is you're doing that is facilitating the compulsions, we have to stop all of that. And that will, again, help restore these family boundaries where the child is taking care of their responsibilities and the parent is taking care of their responsibilities, and the siblings are functioning side by side instead of either one of them or more of them being having to alter their life for the sake of the anxiety disorder in service to the anxiety. So that's kind of the basic gist of the family boundaries.